This might be it. Finally, after years and years of development, one by on a road bike might finally work. I'll be riding a brand new SRAM Red XPLR 1x13 group set on a road bike for the last few weeks on a range of routes, hilly and flat, slow and fast, to find out if one by on a road bike can finally work. And is it time to put the front derailleur in the history books? I'm not here to tell you it's better, a game changer, or the future, but share my honest opinion of the group set. And for full transparency, this video is not sponsored by SRAM. They have no idea of making this video at all. And for context, I've always been a fan of one by. All my mountain bikes and all my gravel bikes have one by. It's my preference off-road. But despite trying it on a road bike over the last 10 years with 1x11 and 1x12, I haven't quite felt the ability to make the switch from 2x and leave the front mech at home yet. So let's compare this 1x13 group set to a typical road bike 2x setup, a compact 50-34 with an 11-30 cassette, very normal, very popular across the board. So here we have the 10-46 cassette, and up front I've gone for a 46. Yes, the pros are using massive dinner plate 54 and 56 chainrings because they are superhuman, a lot fitter than me, and the racing is very fast indeed. But I found that the 46 perfect for my level of fitness, for the riding I do, whether slow solo rides or fast paced group rides, and because here in the Cotswolds it's very hilly. But the chainring size on a 1x setup, as on a 2x, is something you tailor for the riding you do. With a regular 2x setup, you can opt for a massive 53-39 if you're racing or riding on flat roads, or go for a compact 50-34 if you're riding the Alps. You need the lower climbing gears. And the same on 1x. You go down to an easier gear, 40 or 42 if you're riding off-road, or go up to a 54 or 56 if you're a pro or you ride somewhere very flat. So here are some gear charts that show how this setup compares to that typical 2x setup and really shows the difference in gear ratios. Firstly, it's a win for 1x13 as the overall range is bigger at 460% compared to just 401 for that conventional setup. That means you have a lower, easier gear for climbing, and the top gear is about the same. And in my riding so far, I found the range to be more than adequate. I've never once felt I've missed out on my 2x setup. I never found myself spinning wildly on a fast descent or grinding a massive gear up a steep climb. And honestly, it just feels the same as 2x. I don't feel any loss of range, whether climbing, doing the rolling roads we have here in the Cotswolds, or doing a high-speed action. So no real compromise in that aspect, actually even better. So the range is pretty good and actually works really well. But for me, the big issue is gear jumps, the steps between different sprockets and the impact that has on your pedaling cadence. And that is definitely a bigger issue with 1x versus 2x. And for me, it's the gear jumps more than the range perhaps that's held 1x back from really working and succeeding on the road. Well, here 13 speed helps a lot. Extracting the actual gear selection data from the group set, a really neat feature on SRAM group sets across 2 rides, makes some interesting insights. On a typical steady ride with a few hills above 15% in places, you can clearly see which gears are used most often. My cadence also tends to average between 90 and 100 RPM, which is my natural pedaling rhythm, with no crazy spikes to really talk of. And then on a faster paced group ride, the gear selection data shifts noticeably towards the smaller end of the cassette. And yes, even the 10-2 sprocket gets a fair share of action. And the gear data clearly supports the idea that the group set range does work for normal riding. Now, the best way for me and for you to look at this cassette, as massive as it is essentially you have a 10-38 lineup, so quite tightly spaced, but then you have a massive 46 tooth bailout climbing gear. Because the top middle third of the cassette is tightly spaced with 1 tooth jumps, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then it goes 2 tooth jumps, 15, 17, 19, 28, and then bigger. And when you are riding at high speed, you're in a chain gang or a peloton, those tightly spaced sprockets and the small gaps really help. And even the 46, which is quite small compared to the pros, I found it worked really well. When the pace is being dictated by someone in front of you, you don't have the luxury to choose the perfect gear for the speed and cadence you want to be in. And most of the time, probably 98% of the time, I felt I was in the perfect gear. There were 2 occasions on the route we rode the other day on a small incline when somebody was on the front and really pushing the pace, where I found myself between 2 gears, but it lasted probably 100 meters before we got over that incline and I stepped up to that bigger gear and the cadence was fine. So only 2 small scenarios, very short, where I felt I was either slightly too high or too low, but by a tiny amount. It really wasn't a deal breaker for me. And around that chain gang route, 40 kilometers at nearly 40k an hour, the gearing worked really well. We've seen pro cyclists dabble with one bike in World Tour races over the years. There is, of course, the infamous Aquasport Blue saga, of course, a team sponsored by 3T with the original Strada 1x bike, but the big limitation on that bike was a 1x11 gearing. Basically, 1x wasn't ready for that team. More recently, however, things look better, with Mads Pedersen of the Little Trek team winning a Cobble Classic on a Trek Madone SLR with this very group set. The team have even shared some really good information on the testing and development and use of the group set and why they've done it and why they've ditched the front mech, which I'll link to down below. But in a nutshell, it comes down to how the group set performs under load when riding on bad roads, holes and cobbles, and about reducing the risk of a dropped chain. Now, drop chains happen all the time actually in pro races, especially Cobble Classics. You don't always hear any drama about it unless it's Tom Boonen when it happened to him in Paris-Roubaix in 2017. So that ruined his race. 2x, chain dropped on the Timberg and his race was over. So remove the front gear change from the equation and you reduce the risk of a dropped chain by a lot. The rear mech also has a clutch mechanism borrowed from mountain bikes to stop the chain bouncing around and keep it on the sprockets and nice and taut. And the rear derailleur, from my own experience, is bloody tough. So if there's a crash or something jams into the mech like a rock or stone, or another rider, another bike, it's not going to bend the mech hanger. And a bent mech hanger can ruin the shifting and that can ruin your race as well. So it's the durability and security of the group set over 2x that definitely winning some rides over in the pro peloton. If you're cynical, of course, you might think the team have been bribed to ride a group set by SRAM, but if you believe that, then you're a very cynical person. It seems like they've done a testing and hey, won a race. So I mean, that's a fair test for any equipment to shine in those tough cobbled spring classics. Yeah, but will it replace 2x in the peloton? Probably not yet, especially because most bikes, you can't fit it. So to wrap up, does it work then? Well, I think 1x finally, with 13 speed here, works on a road bike. And will I be switching all my road bikes to 1x13? Well, I'm not so sure yet for a couple of reasons. Firstly, this is ruddy expensive. Hopefully a Force and rival level group set comes out at some point in the future to bring the price down and make it more accessible, because the technology here is amazing, but very expensive. And the other big issue is the number of road bikes you can buy right now that fit the group set is tiny due to UDH dropout requirement. This 3T Strada Italia is, as far as I know, the only bike you can buy stock with the group set fitted. The Trek Madone SLR, as we know, will take the group set, and the 51 Seeker is another road bike that will too. But we're waiting for bike manufacturers who have moved their gravel bikes over to UDH and mountain bikes too, to move their road bikes over to the new UDH. But we are seeing more and more new bikes, not just gravel and mountain bikes, but road bikes as well, race bikes being given a UDH treatment. So it won't be long, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months before more road bikes are available with UDH. And probably for wider road bike adoption, given this is a gravel bike group set, although very light indeed, does it need to make a road version, whatever that might look like. maybe lighter, smaller rear derailleur, more cassette options perhaps, more chain set options, I don't know. But yeah, it's not heavy, but it's definitely designed for gravel. I like the way it looks. I think the rear derailleur looks amazing. And I like the way it looks on a road bike, but I'm used to that from mountain bikes. I come from mountain biking where this setup looks fairly normal. But I know to a lot of die-in-the-wall roadies, this is very polarizing indeed. What I do like though is that SRAM is giving those people who might want one bike, and I know there are lots of people who do want one bike, a really good choice here. And nobody is being forced to buy it. SRAM 2x Red works bloody well. I'm riding that on my 51 Seeker and it does a really good job. Even the front mech shifting is fantastic. And that's the issue. Giving out one really refined group set that works really well with lots of gear options, chain sets and cassettes for one that does work well, but perhaps brings new limitations to the table, which 2x, there are pros and cons to both systems, and it's best for you to do a personal list of pros and cons based on what you want and the riding you do and see which wins out, 2x or 1x. But 1x13 definitely has more pros and less cons, but I know for some people it's more cons than the pros you get from 2x. So yeah, nobody's been forced to buy it, it's a choice. And I think choice is a great thing. There's one topic I haven't really talked about much yet, the efficiency losses of 1x versus 2x. Yes, all those marginal gains you can lose by going 1x. I won't go into too much detail here, but yes, in the laboratory, the smaller chainring, the 10-2 sprocket, the chain angle in extreme gears, and the narrow wide chainring and the teeth design all have a negative impact on the efficiency from between 1 and 6 watts depending on the study you look at. So if you are obsessed with marginal gains and every watt matters to you, then 1x probably isn't for you. I'm certainly not in a position to give away 3 watts at all, but did I notice any impact on my riding out in the real world due to those issues? Well, honestly, no. I didn't feel like I had to put in extra power, extra watts to overcome the efficiency losses from the group set. The cross-chaining wasn't an issue, even in the 46, which don't spend a lot of time in. And the 10-2 sprocket, when I used it, didn't really seem to impact my ability to smash along at 50+ kilometers per hour. And most of my riding on my local roads was in the middle third, sort of top third of the cassette, where the chain line is nice and straight, and you got the big sprockets. So it seemed to work pretty well in that sort of sweet spot where you spend most of your time on the regular riding I did. So those are my real world, honest, unbiased thoughts on 1x13 on a road bike. It definitely works way better than any 1x road bike group set I've used in the past, and it's closer to 1x actually being a viable alternative to 2x for a lot of people. It's not a group set for everyone, of course, and the comments will show that. The 1x versus 2x argument will roll on for years and years, I'm sure of it, but here is a viable alternative and an option for those people who do want 1x, who see the benefits as being benefits for the riding they do and the style of rider they are. So even if you're not interested in 1x, I think it's really interesting to see how the technology has evolved and matured and how pro riders are using the flexibility that SRAM does offer them compared to the limitations that Shimano has compared to what we have here. So yes, I would love to ride the group set on a road bike longer term. I'll see what I can do to arrange a long-term test and really put it through paces. I'd love to go to the mountains and do some mountain riding on this setup and find out if riding in the mountains is a limitation, but then maybe fit a small chainring. So let me know your thoughts on 1x versus 2x and this new 1x13. Do you think 1x is now ready for the mainstream to take over, or are you wedded to that front derailleur forever? I'd love to hear your thoughts as always. But if you want to check out a review of this bike riding at the Strada Bianca, you can watch the video right here. And of course, don't forget to subscribe by hitting the button right here. But that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again very soon.